Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guruneti Murtiyeta Vigavine Vyoma Vyaptayaya Dakshinamurtiya Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmam.
From the first Guru, that is pure existence, consciousness, down to Shankaracharya in the middle, and my teacher at the end, I prostrate to Guru-disciple tradition, because of which we actually can continue learning this knowledge today. Ishvara, my Guru, is beyond form and duality, beyond space and the body. I bow to Ishvara in the form of Dakshinamurti, that means the aspect of intelligence which brings us self-knowledge. The import of all Vedanta texts is beyond the known and the unknown. It is limitless bliss and unborn light. I worship that reality as my Guru. This will all become clear by the end of this course. The course is not about intellectual knowledge. So if you're expecting to learn a bunch of terms, that belongs to universities, professors, scholars. This is not a scholarly class. This is a class that directly applies to the very subject, which is present. And we will see how the reality of self and Ishvara are not apart. Ishvara, that means the total. So, revision. We saw what the word Veda and Anta means. Remember that? Veda means exceptional means of knowledge. For example, a microscope becomes an exceptional means of knowledge when attached to what?
The eye.
Yeah. This means without the eye, the microscope is as good as useless. So only when we attach the microscope, which is an exceptional means of knowledge, to the instrument to which it was made for, to which it is intended for, then from that aspect it becomes an exceptional means of knowledge. It's able to reveal what it's able to reveal. In the same way, when Veda is attached to what, does it become an exceptional means of knowledge? What do we attach the Veda to?
Intellect?
The intellect, yeah, to the mind. This means the Veda without the mind is as good as the microscope without the eye. Okay, so this means not only do we attach the Veda to the mind, also we have to attach it to a qualified mind. We cannot give it to a mind that is yet to understand the basics of life. So therefore, to understand the Veda and the essence of the message requires a certain maturity of the mind. And we will speak about these required maturities in the next session, just to make sure that we're all in line. Otherwise, what happens is the person will listen and they will say, I'm not getting it. And then they will say something's wrong with the Veda. But it's not. The Veda is always evergreen. It always works if attached to a qualified mind. Exceptional means of knowledge in reference to the Veda, we said is alaukika vishaya. What is alaukika vishaya? You should know all these words. Had 2 weeks to learn. Alaukika? Beyond. Beyond the Sanskrit words. Beyond what?
Beyond the senses.
Senses in Sanskrit. Indriyani and Antah-karana. Antah-karana comprises of what? So far? Mind intellect. Okay, the mind intellect instrument. We will look deeper into the Antahkarana word, so don't worry about it. We're building on slowly. There's a lot more than just saying the mind. You're going to say what is the mind and what's the intellect, what's the difference. So we will investigate all of this. So alaukika vishaya, which means it does not come from the mind or the senses. It can come to the mind, but it cannot come from the mind. Do you see that distinction? If something comes from the mind, what does that mean?
Mental projection.
Good. In other words, I thought about it. But if something comes to the mind, what does that mean? For example, these words are coming to your mind, are they not? It means what? It's being received from some other source. So now you're going to say, okay, from what source is the Veda being received? We will see that soon. And then we said this word alaukika vishaya can be both for beyond and behind. In other words, Veda reveals that which is behind the senses. I'm going to get to the mind soon. Not only is it behind the senses, it also empowers the senses. It also makes the senses function. It makes the sight see. It makes the hearing hear. It makes the taste mechanism taste. What are we talking about? That which is behind, we called it consciousness. In reference to one single individual, Atman. Just like the total electricity, we will call Brahman, which we will discuss. But in reference point to a single individual, that very electricity is called Atman. Okay, so this means, is there any difference between Atman and Brahman?
No.
The individual and the total? No. So then why do we have two words? Why do we have Brahman and Atman? Ideas?
It depends which perspective you're
Well, 100% correct. In other words, to help the person assimilate what is this, how does this relate to me, the individual, then we create a new word called Atman. Is that clear so far? So there's absolutely no difference between the macro and the micro. The samashti means the total, and the vyashti, which means individual, one single. So then we asked, why is it that the senses cannot detect or identify Atman? Why can our eyes not see Atman? Why can our ears or our hearing not hear Atman?
It's designed to go externally.
Because it's beyond and behind.
It's behind in the scale. Now, when we say behind, are we talking about spatially behind?
No.
What are we talking when we say behind? What's the proper word if you say behind? What would be one more accurate word to say than behind?
essence.
Essence permeates, it pervades. So when we say behind, it's only to give you some idea. There is a distinction, but it doesn't mean they're different. When I say Atman, what does this mean? Self, myself, yourself, their self. Remove the my, your, their, what do you get? One same self, referring to what? The principle because of which I am. Consciousness. If we could detect consciousness, then there will be a logical fallacy. What would that be? It means that we would then have to turn consciousness into an object. How do you see something? It has to have what? Form. How do you hear something? It has to have sound. Just close your eyes, go meditate, do some tantric exercise, do some kriya yoga exercise, do some practice, and then you will see the light in your Ajna chakra. And that's God. What's the logical fallacy with that statement? What have I just done? I have turned something which is formless, which doesn't have any attributes, into a form. Just go into samadhi, and then when you hear on your right ear a certain melodious ring, like an om, that is God. Same principle. In other words, whenever we're prescribed the practice and told to expect something, to see something, to hear something, to smell rosemary, that's God, that rosemary. That is what? Not Atman. That's called Anatman. That's called not real, unreal. We will investigate what this word means, unreal. In other words, we can never turn consciousness into something that we can smell, taste, feel, sense in samadhi. Oh, I'm sensing, I'm somewhere, I'm in a special place. I am now complete, I am whole. Why can we not do that? Because to say that, who's the one in whose presence is saying that? I am, consciousness. Therefore, whatever I'm talking about is other than the very subject prior to the experience which is being recognized or noticed. So far, we have said consciousness has no properties, has no attributes, so there's nothing one can say about it, one cannot speak about it, one cannot think about it, one cannot smell it or hear it or do anything that they can write. Oh, I've experienced consciousness. It cannot be experienced. Why? Why can consciousness not be experienced? When we say experience, what are we talking about? Something other than
Self.
but someone said the self, something other than self. In other words, it is always going, if I say I've experienced consciousness, what am I saying? Yeah, I'm experiencing an object known to I am. Summary, consciousness, formless, attributeless, absolutely no form or shape or size or sound that you can put onto consciousness. So next time someone promises you, you're supposed to see or feel something very subtle. It doesn't matter if a person goes to the Amazon jungle and tries all of the plants, LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, all of that. It is all what? Another experience known to the subject. Now, why can the mind not think consciousness? Not think Atman? Why can you not have a thought of consciousness?
Because the mind is pervaded by consciousness.
Good. Any more ideas?
Because consciousness is not from the mind.
Because thought is also an object.
Yeah. Because it's also a object. That's the most accurate answer. Because even if you smell something, what is that? That's an object of knowledge, known to me. Even if I have a thought, that is an object of knowledge, known to me. For example, experiment. What is 20 divided by 4? Whatever the answer is to that, that was what? That was an object of knowledge. That's called a thought. Now, imagine walking on the beach with the sun shining, warming your skin, and you're barefoot, feeling the soft, warm sand, and your feet are sinking into the sand, and you're hearing the sound waves of the ocean, the waves crashing against the rocks, and you are walking by yourself, and you're smelling the air of the surroundings, and you're looking at the palm trees, and the gentle breeze is blowing against your cheeks. And then you look down, and you find your perfect place, and you grab the towel and place it onto the sand. You look one more time where you're going to land, and you drop. And then you take your arms out, and you say, let me relax. And you're still feeling that sun rays. You're still hearing the sounds. You're still feeling that air brushing against your cheeks. That's called what?
Heaven.
That is called a thought. I planted a thought in what? In where? In the mind. And the mind was undergoing a series of thoughts after thoughts in accordance with the words that were being heard through the indriyani, through the senses. Therefore, even if I said, imagine peace, the ultimate peace, you would still say, yeah, but that is still another object of knowledge known to self. Therefore, Atman cannot be a thought. For example, going back, what do we say? Consciousness has no attributes. Why is it that your eye can see? Why is it that your sight can see clearly? Why is it that your sight can see color and texture and form and depth? Answer is because the sight itself is what? Colorless. It has no depth. It has no texture of its own. In other words, the reason why I can see color is because the very principle which sees does not have color of its own. So it is only because the sight is attributeless that it can give attribute to that which has attributes. In the same way, consciousness, the very reason why it's attributeless is why it can validate the world of appearance, the world of form, the world of color, the sights, the sounds, the tastes. If the sight had a color, then what would happen? The entire world will be superimposed by that one color. And you could not tell what is green, what is blue, what is red. It will only be one. But the fact that I can tell distinctly what is what, every movement is validated exactly means what? That consciousness itself is free of movement, free of shape, free of any kind of activity that is arising in this world. So because something is attributeless is the very reason why it can validate attributes of everything else. So the conclusion so far is the mind, called the Antahkarana, or the senses, called the Indriyani, can never detect or pick up or sense Atman, because Atman is that which is behind Indriyani and the Antahkarana. And at the same time, can someone here say, I am not conscious? Can any person in the world say that I am not conscious? No one in this world can say, I am not conscious. No one can say, I don't exist. Can you say that? Why? Because there will be a contradiction of the very fact that is obvious. In other words, my very consciousness that I'm conscious, I'm alert, that I exist, is the most self-evident principle to all. Even a 5-year-old child without Vedanta knows that. You don't have to say to a child, hey child, did you know that you exist? Why does a mother never say that to a child? Why do we say everything else other than the most obvious? Because we all know inherently that I exist. I am conscious, I am alert, I am aware. In other words, nobody can say that I am not conscious. So this is what we mean when we say consciousness is already ever available. You don't have to learn consciousness. It is not a philosophical statement. Oh, let me go and read in this Vedas consciousness. Okay. Wow, I have that. Just the very fact that I'm reading this and looking at these words means what? There is a conscious subject looking at the words. In other words, the words are dependent on whom? Myself. I am not dependent on the words. So what are we talking about in Veda? We simply bring out what is already true, except we fail to acknowledge it because we never took the time to inquire. So what is Vedanta? We simply bring out what is already present and obvious to everyone. This section, 4 behind, is called what? Jnana Kanda / Upanishad / Vedanta. So what section deals with that which is behind? What section deals with consciousness? Answer? Another word? Another word? Vedanta. Okay. Now, beyond. In the aspect of beyond, the senses and the mind can investigate it, but it can never discover it on its own. For example, can the mind discover on its own what happens after death? And even if you do come back, then how do I believe you? How do I validate what you're saying is true? That's the other issue with it. Right? And there's so many different experiences, like, well, who's right here? So Veda tells us knowledge of the beyond. That means what happens after this body dies. For example, after this body dies, what survives?
The subtle mind.
Sanskrit? Antahkarana. Another name for Antahkarana? Jiva. Okay. And then the Jiva inherits a new body according to the past karma. That means everything that has been done in the previous life, then it gets continued according to all of the actions. That means there's no escape out of this place. No one can say, oh, I'm just going to engage into licentiousness and just enjoy myself, get rich, and then just, go around. And it's okay, this is my last life. It doesn't work like that. The person gets reborn one life after another until moksha. And we will talk about what moksha is. It also speaks about the relationship of action and reaction. That means cause and effect. So we get to see how everything has an effect onto something else. And this section is called, starts with K. Oh, that one you remember, huh? The section that we're not doing, you remember. Karma kanda. That's a long A. Kanda. How do you say it? So we're done with the word Veda now. Next word, Anta. We said Anta has two definitions. What's the first one? Inside. Who said it? Someone. Yeah. What's inside what?
Consciousness.
Yeah, consciousness is inside. The Jnana Kanda, the Upanishads, is inside the Veda. Not Veda, Veda. Okay. Where is it inside? On the front, in the middle, at the end. Where is it? All throughout. What's the second definition of Anta? Final message. In other words, it's the culmination of all the Vedas. What are they trying to ultimately arrive to? After exhausting all of the karma kanda for years and lifetimes, where is it all going? That means that's what Anta refers to the highest knowledge. The second definition refers to Upanishads. Summary: Veda is a means of knowledge for karma and jnanam. Revision done. Session 2 we begin now. What is the origin of Veda? When I say Veda, I'm including both the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda section. First of all, before we talk about the origin, Veda is also called Shruti. Shruti means heard. What's Veda, Kelsey? What does Shruti mean? Heard, okay. When we say heard, it does not mean I've thought about it. Interesting. I've observed something. Let me think about it. Now let me write it down. What does heard mean? It comes. It just comes. I didn't even ask for it. It just comes. It's revealed. Therefore, Veda is revealed text. Therefore, Veda and Shruti are synonymous. Now, where did the Shruti come from? When I say Shruti, I'm actually asking, where did the Veda come from? Because they're synonymous. They came from the depths of Rishi meditation. So what does this mean? We've all had a moment where a flash of insight comes. You know this moment? You've been trying to solve a problem, maybe, and couldn't figure it out. And then at some moment later on, or tomorrow or something, it just comes. And how does it come? Does it come partial or does it come full? Full. Or when you ever had that experience of having something on the tip of your tongue, or let's say or the finger, or the tongue, trying to remember something, it's like, oh, it's so close, it's so close, it's so close. And then when it comes, is it full or is it partial? Full. In its totality. It's final. So in that same way, when a rishi receives this flash of full clarity in its fullness, where? In one's depths of meditation. So let's compare this flash of clarity between a common man and a rishi. So a common man receives the flash of clarity as a solve a problem. Or even like Isaac Newton, he witnessed an observation of an object falling, and on the basis of that, he inferred that there must be some force that's pulling down this object. Now, does this mean that gravity was not there before Isaac Newton created the word gravity? So gravity, the principle of gravity was there all along, whether I was alive, whether the person was dead, whether the person thought about it or not. It was true all along. But on the basis of my observation and my inference and my thinking, what I did? I concluded there must be some force, and then I created a name called gravity. Therefore, I didn't have to extract it. It was already available. How? By the right circumstances and the mind being in the right state of mind. In the case of rishis, it is called the depths of meditation. Do you know Ramanujan, the great mathematician? And in the same way, by putting his mind in a right state of mind, is able to receive these equations. And then equations later end up having this huge impact in this world. Okay, so this is another example of revelation. Still the normal common man. He thinks about something, he inquires into something, he tries to see a different angle, and on the basis of taking my time, what do? I eventually get the full picture. I go, E equals mc squared. And then you can show it, and you go where? You go to an auditorium, and you say, here's how E equals mc squared cannot be broken down. And then what did the other candidates do? They try to break it down. And so what's my job as Einstein? To show how it cannot be broken down. In other words, if nobody can break it down, then E equals mc squared remains true. If it can be broken down, then E equals mc squared has a logical fallacy in it, therefore it goes out of existence. So what is, when we say Veda? Things which cannot be negated. Things which cannot be broken down from whichever angle, whichever philosophy you look at it from. It cannot, can you break down the fact that you're conscious?
No.
If you did, you'd be lying. In other words, you cannot break down what is already true right now. So in the same way, Veda cannot be broken down from whichever angle you want to look at it from. A rishi receives this flash of clarity in the form of mantras. This means, in the depths of meditation, the rishi instantaneously receives the fullness, a mantra. And then what do? Without interpreting, without putting commentaries, without subjectivity, without biases, without prejudices, I immediately put down that which is revealed onto a piece of paper, or I memorize it. So how did this knowledge come, which is called Veda? Through the depths of rishi meditation in the form of mantras, and those mantras are not edited, they're not biased, they're not subjective, they are as they were heard, they are as they were revealed in its original form. Whereas a common man, what do? When they receive a flash of insight, they go, let me write it down. In other words, let me now already interpret what I heard. Let me already add my own spin, my own subjectivity, my own bias on what I've solved. So already it is no longer original. It is already contaminated by personal notions. Whereas a mantra, original as it comes. So that's the difference. Now, what is the official definition for a rishi? Rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. Drashta means those who saw. This means they didn't think and then write down. They saw and they put down in their native language. In this case, it was Sanskrit. That's why we say Vedas are revealed texts. Rishi, you know, seer. Therefore, rishis are seers of mantras, those who saw. Rishis are those who saw. For example, who's a seer of Gayatri mantra? Vishwamitra. Who's a seer of Taittiriya Upanishad? Vaishampayana. Okay, so we have different seers for different Upanishads, even different mantras. So in other words, these, for example, Vishwamitra, in the depths of one's meditation, the entire Om Bhur Bhuvaha Suvaha comes. And then we put that as Gayatri mantra. Let's go to the Jnana Kanda section. Upanishads is called Shruti Prasthana. Revealed. What is Prasthana? To go. Something which takes you, enables me to walk, to attain. So now if I say Shruti Prasthana, how would you translate that?
Reveals the way, shows the way.
Okay, good. Something that shows me the way, but in reference to what? Shruti, and Shruti is what? Veda, but I said now in reference to Upanishads.
Shows the way to the highest knowledge.
Shruti Prasthana, revealed knowledge by which one discovers Atman. Who's this one that discovers? You are. That's why we're in this class. We're not in this class to hear a bunch of words. We're here to discover what is the truth of who I am. So Shruti Prasthana, revealed knowledge, because who revealed it? The rishis. By which one discovers, that means the listener discovers, Atman, the highest reality. Who am I? What am I? We will now speak also of two more important texts, new section, that are part of Vedanta. Two more important texts. We have done Upanishads. Another important text is the Bhagavad Gita. The author of Bhagavad Gita is who?
Krishna.
Not the guru in the Bhagavad Gita. Veda Vyasa. He's the author of Mahabharata. Why is he called Veda Vyasa? Because he took many parts that used to make up the Vedas and he comprised them into 4 categories for the sake of preserving them, for the sake of making it easier to access. And then what happened is the rule was then you give one Veda, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, to one family, and the rule was that family should then pass it on to the next generation. And also each Veda takes 12 years to study. Therefore, each family had 12 years to study the Veda and thus pass it on to the next generation. So it is because of Veda Vyasa that all of this knowledge is now still preserved. Otherwise, it would have been all over the place, dispersed a little bit here, a little bit there. So we own a lot to Veda Vyasa. Who put Upanishads in the way that they are in the Veda? Veda Vyasa. So this means the whole Vedas are the way that they are because of Veda Vyasa's effort. Okay. Now, what do we mean when we say Bhagavad Gita is an important text in Vedanta? If you take all of the 108 Upanishads, and if you were to say they are all cows, 108 cows, and they all deliver milk, and then you have a big bowl, and you go underneath each cow, and you take a little bit of milk from one cow, next cow, all the way to 108 cow, the total milk of all of the cows, you can now put name Bhagavad Gita. In other words, the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all 108 Upanishads. In other words, there is not a single thing that you will miss out from the Upanishads, if you, at least the important thing, if you go through the Bhagavad Gita. Which is why the Bhagavad Gita today is the most precious, most valuable, the greatest text that one can go through. Because even if you go through the Upanishads, like Prashna Upanishad or Mandukya Upanishad, you're actually going to miss out what another Upanishad is talking about. But if you go through the Bhagavad Gita, then you get the essence of all 108 Upanishads. So that's the glory of the Bhagavad Gita. And what's the Bhagavad Gita? The conversation between Krishna and Arjuna as a what? As a narrative in the light of the Upanishads. Now, do you really think that Krishna and Arjuna would be chanting to each other, shloka after shloka? You know, chapter 9 is over, let chapter 10 begin, bhuya eva mahabaho, shrinu me paramam vachaha, yateham priyamanaya. Vakshyami, hitakamyaya, Arjuna uvacha, etc., etc. One shloka after shloka. That's impossible. So what did Veda Vyasa do? He took a historical event and a significant event, and then he expanded it in the light of the Upanishads, in the light of... So therefore, the Krishna-Arjuna conversation is true. However, has been expanded in the light of the highest knowledge. Because in normal life, you had people making errors, they stutter. So you cannot have this word perfect, full stop, comma, etc. So therefore, it is obviously taken in a form to make it a perfect narrative for the reader to read and learn in the light of something that is applicable in real life. For this reason, we call the Bhagavad Gita reflected text. It's Smriti Prasthana. Don't say Smriti is remembered. Smriti Prasthana means reflected text. Why is it reflected? Because I'm taking a moment, something that's significant, and I am expanding, I'm thinking about, now how would I expand this so it actually a perfect flow, so it actually makes sense to the reader? How do I make this sort of have this narrative? I'm thinking out of what? The highest knowledge of the Upanishads. And in the light of that, I am expanding the statement. So that's how the Bhagavad Gita has been comprised. Summary, Vedanta so far equals Upanishads plus Bhagavad Gita. Okay, another text is Brahma-Sutra. Brahma-Sutra is called Nyaya Prasthana. Nyaya means logic. Also authored by Veda Vyasa. And why is Brahma-Sutra created? To answer any doubts, any objections, any possible uncertainties by reading the Upanishads. So if the Upanishads are making something that I'm not quite clear, or there's some contradictions, then where are those contradictions answered? In Brahma Sutra. Back those times when we were thinking a lot deeper, then we wanted to know, well, there's some contradictions here. And what happened is the one who didn't quite know what the Upanishads is saying, they asked a very sophisticated question, and then we had to then answer that question. So where are those questions? In the Brahma Sutra. Perfect, impeccable logic. Hair-splitting details. What kind of prasthana is Upanishads? Shruti? Yeah, loud. What is Bhagavad Gita? And what is Brahma-Sutra? What is Smriti Prasthana in English?
Reflected text.
What is Shruti Prasthana?
Shows the
And what is Nyaya Prasthana? Logical analysis. Therefore, since all three texts are meant to reveal the self, the nature of who I am, that's their purpose, they're called thus Prasthana Traya. In other words, the journey to discovering the self is enabled through these three texts. This means, one, to discover the truth, the absolute reality. How do I do that? I go and consult the three texts. And each three texts that we just said are independent. This means the Bhagavad Gita does not need anything else. It is complete of itself. The Upanishads, 108, they are complete of themselves. They're independent. They don't need something to validate their own logic. They are self-validating. That means all of the knowledge that they require to support their own examples is already available within themselves. Same with the Bhagavad Gita, same with the Brahma-Sutra. Therefore, all three Prasthana Traya are complete of themselves. And you put these three texts together in one single word, Shastra, scriptures. Is Tattva Bodha a Shastra?
No.
Good. Is Tattva Bodha a Vedanta text?
Yes.
Why? Last session, the last statement I said was Tattva Bodha enables me to enter the Shastra. So this means Tattva Bodha has to be associated to the Shastra. Therefore, whatever is in the Shastra has to then be also in the Tattva Bodha. So what kind of text is Tattva Bodha? Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana Grantha. Grantha means text. Prakarana means topical. That means subject, a particular subject. So a little comparison. Shastra, Grantha, deals with total knowledge. There's nothing you can ask that is not mentioned in Shastra Grantha. Prakarana Grantha deals with a topic, topical knowledge. That means it chooses a specific section that is relevant and it talks about just that. That's what Tattva Bodha is. And what topic does Tattva Bodha give? It gives the most important Shastric teachings. That means the most essential teachings in the entire Shastra, the three texts, those teachings it reveals, it teaches us. And what's the purpose of Tattva Bodha? The purpose is, in order to enter Shastra Grantha, what have the masters done? They have made Prakarana Grantha. To prepare us, so by the time we go into Shastra Grantha, we know what the essential words are. We know what is it talking about. It has relevance to the reader.
Is it like a glossary of terms? Or?
It's not only a glossary of terms, it's usually called a book of the Grantha of definitions, but Tattva Bodha is actually a text to come to the highest reality. It's to discover the highest reality.
Then what would be the difference between this text and the other ones? Is it just in the nature of the detail that one...
They have the same purpose, good question. So the purpose of Tattva Bodha is to discover the highest reality. The purpose of Prasthana Traya / Shastra is to discover the highest reality. This is the beauty about Vedanta. No book is sort of, irrelevant. They all have the same purpose. Show me who and what I am. What is the nature of this reality? However, it's compressed. It's very defined in Tattva Bodha. In the Shastra, they're a lot more expanded. There's so many more details, how to apply it and how it's relevant to family, to life. For example, all of the things in the Bhagavad Gita, we don't say that in the Tattva Bodha, like karma yoga and and how to actually live this with your family. That's all in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a practical text. Tattva Bodha is a very defined and precise text to reveal specifically the knowledge of Upanishads. Who's the author of Tattva Bodha? None other than Adi Shankara. And Adi Shankara written commentaries on the entire Shastra. In other words, who better to listen to than the one who has total knowledge of all of the Shastra? In other words, I would rather listen to someone who knows all three than who knows just the Bhagavad Gita. Before any text begins, usually in Vedanta tradition, we begin with something called mangalacarana. Mangala means auspiciousness, and acharana means to perform, to conduct, offering or performing an auspicious act. In short, invoking auspiciousness. So before we begin a text, we do what? Mangalacarana. What is Mangalacarana? I invoke auspiciousness. And the question is now, why does the author, Adi Shankara, start with Mangalacarana? Why does he not go straight into the text? Why does he not just start authoring the text right away? What do you think?
Prepare the mind.
Prepare the mind. Good start.
Gratitude to the Lord.
Yeah, gratitude to the Guru. Gratitude to that one because of which I know this knowledge, because of which I'm able to express this knowledge. In other words, I do Mangalacharana to invoke Lord. From there on, I become a mere instrument for the Lord to write through. This means I put myself aside. I don't let my own subjectivity, my own agenda come into the picture and start writing the book. I'm going to write this from my experience. This is how most of the books are on the shelves in the libraries and bookshelves. I've got an experience of near death, so I'm going to write my experience. I've had conversations with God, and I'm going to write the conversations that I have had. I'm not interested in this. Why? Because so many different ideas from the person's own life start to contaminate the knowledge. So I don't know if it's true or if it's false. So it's just a mixture of both. It's a mess up. Therefore, Mangalacharana, the entire person is put on the side. They become a mere instrument for the Lord to write through and deliver something that is useful for those who I am writing for. Lord, I seek your blessings. Please help to remove this mind and these ideas aside, at least for a time being, and let this instrument be an instrument as you would have it be, in the way that you would want it to be, so that I can write, so something useful can come and help those who are ready to listen to this message. Therefore, what do? I perform a Mangala Acharana. And the logic of this is, if the Lord is the manifestor, is the creator and the sustainer of this entire universe, this means everything that is present is not mine. Because this body is also just another manifestation of the total. Therefore, I put away this person, this individuality, and I surrender to that one which is the essence of all. It's also said that whatever is done with the Mangalacharana is done with full completion. It's because if the person is involved, then they bring their own ideas. Why am I doing this? Is this any point in doing this? What if they don't even appreciate what I'm doing? What if they don't even respect what I'm doing? What if this fails? You see how these personal ideas start to come? So if I put myself aside, there's a lot less chance of this arising in the middle of the work. Therefore, when we impose or invoke a Mangalacharana, we increase the likelihood of completing the task which we have started out. Maybe you saw this somewhere on TV. A little girl is dancing and she's singing and she closes her eyes. And then she opens her eyes and her parents are watching. And she goes, oh, she realizes her parents are watching. And then the parents say, no, it's okay. Continue dancing, continue singing. What happens to her ability? It goes down. In other words, now there's a person involved. Someone's watching me. Now I have to perform. But before I realized that someone was watching me, what happened? I forgot myself. I became an instrument of the Lord to dance, to sing. And that is why the person goes, wow, that's grace, pure grace. In other words, how do you do anything best? Forget yourself. As long as there's a person there, it is half-baked work. The work is partial. The work is contaminated by my own ideas. All of the great touching poems and all of the great speeches that we heard, presidential speeches long time ago at least, and all of the great artwork came how? The artist forgot himself. The politician forgot himself. And therefore we're all touched like, wow, this is like goosebumps. How do we forget ourselves? Through mangalacarana. That's why sports people love to be in a moment. That zone. You're like, I'm not even there. I like to watch World Cup. And I'm seeing these two people, soccer players attacking, pursuing the goal. And they're passing the ball to each other, right, from a distance of 5 meters. And they're not even watching their legs. And their legs are doing this amazing work. And I'm going, this is just, I don't know words how impressive this is. This is excellent. That's called being in the zone. The soccer player is not even playing. He's being a mere instrument for soccer to come through. We say, wow, this is amazing. Therefore, we will start with the mangalacarana.
Vasudevendra yogindram nattva jnana-pradam gurum mumukshunam hitarthaya Tattva Bodha vidiyate.
Nattva. First thing, having prostrated. Meaning, before anything, what do? I offer myself to Vasudevendra Yogindram, Lord Krishna. That means the son of Vasudeva. That's why he's called Vasudeva. Now, why is Shankaracharya invoking Krishna? Why is he not invoking Rama or some other, many other deities or avatars? Well, in that moment, specifically, Shankaracharya remembers Krishna. And it was Lord Krishna who actually gave the message of Vedanta. Krishna represents the Lord. Don't think now, oh, Krishna, no, it wasn't Krishna, it was Rama, it was, Saraswati, it was Dakshinamurti. It's just a symbol. So who delivered this knowledge? Lord Krishna. Therefore, to Shankara, Lord Krishna represents the Lord. Thus, Shankara invokes specifically Lord Krishna as the one to surrender to. And then he says, Vasudevendra. He, referring to Krishna, representing the Lord, he is the God of all gods. In other words, he's the ultimate. There's nothing higher than him. What's the difference between Avatara Krishna and all the other avatars? Why is Krishna so glorious? Because Krishna specifically is an avatara who delivered self-knowledge. That is his only purpose. What did other avatars do, like Rama? They destroyed asuras, and then they went away. Left a few, some knowledge here and there, and then they went away. Krishna is only incarnated for the sake of self-knowledge. That's why the whole Gita is there. Therefore, that's another reason why Shankaracharya invokes Krishna. Yogi Indram. You are the highest of all yogis. What is a yogi? The one with siddhis, powers, extraordinary capacities that a normal human being will go, how is this? It's impossible. No way. But it is possible. That means you are the yogi of all yogis. You're not an ordinary yogi. You're not just a yogi with siddhis, but you're a yogi firmly established in the truth as the truth. There is nothing higher because you are the truth. And what is that truth? Atman. Therefore, in you, I surrender. That's Shankaracharya's mangalacarana. In you, O Lord, I surrender. In that one, the yogi of all yogis, the God of all gods, one who is firmly established in the truth as the truth itself. Jnana pradam gurum. So Guru, another name is Acharya, is the one who bestows knowledge. What knowledge? The knowledge that we're about to embark on, the highest knowledge. Having prostrated to the Guru, let me be an instrument to the knowledge which the Guru imparts, or which the Guru bestows. So I do what first? I first prostrate, and then after prostrating, I become an instrument to the knowledge expounded by whom? The Guru. So let me be an instrument of this knowledge which the Guru bestows. And then may I not mingle with it. May I not modify it according to my own ideas, according to whether this is correct, according to my doubts, whether this is really what was originally intended. Therefore, Adi Shankara chooses Krishna because in that moment he just thought of Krishna. It's one of his favorite, perhaps, gurus, at least in that time. Maybe the next day if he started writing, it would have been someone else. But in this case, it's Krishna. The point is, all gurus represent the one same reality. So it doesn't matter who was chosen. I want to stress this so you don't have some kind of thoughts that now we're getting into these different gods and they're different. They all represent the one same reality. Okay. Now the second line, mumuksu nam hitarthaya tattva bodha abhidhiyate. This is Santi, that's why they took out the aha. First of all, for whom is this text? Mumukshu. What is mumukshu? One desirous of liberation. Moksha. So this means if you're studying this text to make money, studying this text to be successful in worldly endeavors, to be a good speaker, this text is not for you. If you're studying this text that we're doing in this class for moksha, for liberation, to attain liberation, then this text is for you. So right from the beginning, we know who this text is for. If you're here to learn terms, which we will, or to compare one philosophy against another, how is Vedanta different from Tantra or Buddhism? This text is not for you. Because that's called a scholar. That's called a person who is seeking still, going from one event to another event, looking what makes sense, what doesn't. Like an investigator, like a policeman, a spiritual policeman, going, no, this is not good. This is not, I like a little bit of this. So they take a little bit from everything. This is not what Tattva Bodha is. If one wants liberation and they want to stop seeking and know the ultimate truth, this text is for you. When? Tomorrow? Next year? No. Right now in class, at least when we go through this program. Therefore, this is not about intellectual terms or some kind of philosophy or comparing or trying to be smart. This is about the very subject that is listening. Who is this person that is right here, right now? And how is all here one? How is that the case? That is what we're going to discover. And what's the purpose? Hitarthaya. To help them what? Get liberation, because it said mumukshu. In other words, not only is it going to talk about moksha, liberation, but it's also going to help them who? The student in the class who are now listening to this, get or attain liberation. Now please don't philosophize and say you cannot attain or you get liberation. You can't become who you already are. I heard every statement in the spiritual world of these one-liner YouTube, Facebook comments who just say, you can't attain this, it's already attained. All of this comes from a muddled mind. No clue what it's saying. When we say attain, tell me one thing in life that you haven't gotten, that you haven't attained as a result of what? Efforts. Therefore, in reference to the effort, you then say what? I have attained this. How do you attain a job promotion? Hard work. In reference to the hard work that I've put in, working harder than anyone else, in reference to that, when I get the promotion, I say, I have attained the promotion. I have attained what I deserve. In the same way, in reference to going through Tattva Bodha, going through the analysis, in reference to all of that, through the course of time, one attains moksha. So there's no need to go into these big words and say you can't attain and all these philosophical statements. And for this reason, Tattva Bodha abhidhiyate. Now, what does the word tattva mean? Reality. Bodha knowledge. In other words, knowledge of reality. So when we say Tattva Bodha, what does it say here? Okay, knowledge of... Now, what is reality? You are reality. Are you separate from reality? So we're going to investigate what is this reality which is being spoken of. So Tattva Bodha abhidiyate. In other words, Tattva Bodha is thus expounded or taught. Why? Because for the mumuksu who desires moksha, liberation. So if you translate this whole verse, what do we get? After offering my salutations to the Guru, Tattva Bodha, meaning knowledge of reality, is expounded to those who seek liberation. And before entering any text, we have a qualification. The qualification is for purposes of saving time. Because suppose that you don't know what this book is about. You obviously have some questions. What can this book, what is the subject matter? What does this book talk about? Can this book help me? Okay, so there's natural questions. So these questions is what we called Anubandha-chatushtaya. What is chatushtaya? Fourfold, good. Chatushtaya, fourfold, Anubandha, associations or considerations. Therefore, if I say, what is the Anubandha-chatushtaya of this grantha, of this text, then what did I say? What are the fourfold considerations? What are the four principles I have to consider before I actually go into this book? Otherwise, if I don't consider them, I'm probably going to waste my time or stop halfway. So, what is fold one? Adhikari. This means person who is eligible. For whom is this text written for? Who is the deserving candidate to engage into this text? And what's the answer? Mumuksu. The seekers of liberation. Second fold is Vishaya. Subject matter. What is the subject matter of this text? In other words, what's the means? What is the method of this book? Or what is being taught in this book? That's the question for Vishaya. And what's the answer? What's being taught? Tattva Bodha. Excellent. In other words, what's being taught? Knowledge of reality. Number 3 is prayojanam. What is the result or the end? That means what's the result of studying the text? And the answer is moksha. Now, where does it say moksha here? In any one of these words?
Mumuksu.
Yeah, got it. 100%. The one who is desirous of liberation, therefore, who is this text for? What's the result? Moksha. And then fold 4 is sambandha, which means relationship. Good. In other words, in what way is this text connected to my pursuit? I need to know that. Okay, sure, it talks about the knowledge of reality. That's great. But so what? In other words, how is that connected to my desire? How is that connected to what I want? And the answer is, it has a solution to my problem. And where's that answer? Abhidiyate. In other words, this book expounds. So as soon as I see this, I go, so not only does this book talk about the knowledge of reality and moksha, but this book expounds how to attain moksha. Now you go, okay, now I definitely want to read it, right? Okay, how to attain moksha. Okay, let's read the book. So therefore, sambandha fulfills the motivation of the person to actually engage into the book. It gives a reason why I should study this text.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate